Hi, all. It's been a few minutes. There was Thanksgiving and our pretty epic logistical wobbles that we had in my house for our Thanksgiving travel and arrangements and different things like that. I hope it was much easier and more restful, less hiccupy for you all than it was for us. And then I had the incredible opportunity to pivot and go to the Learning Forward conference last week in National Harbor, Maryland. And woo, such a great conference. So many amazing people, wonderful keynotes, lots of folks digging into really great conversations about evidence of learning, evidence of student growth, evidence of implementation, evidence of supporting our students and it making an impact on them and their learning and their confidence and their self-efficacy and all of those different pieces. It was soul filling. It was fantastic. So shout out for Learning Forward and everyone who was there. Thanks so much. At our session, I should say, last Wednesday, we were discussing critical steps when making sense of assessment data. But that's not actually what I'm super jazzed to talk to y'all about today. What I have been thinking about over and over again since I left that conference was one of the steps that we talked about and the great conversations that it sparked afterwards, which was, how do we overcome data phobia? It's a real thing. It's like math phobia. It's out there. In fact, many of us who are self-ascribed as non-math people also have this blah, that means I'm not a data person either. And I am here to tell you, every single one of us can be a data person. Every single one of us can work with data and all those pieces from our tiny littles, our kindergartners, all the way up through to the superintendent and everybody else in the system. We all have the intrinsic internal capacity. And what I was realizing as I was working with the group at our session was thinking about there's a structure that we use at Dataspire when we are working with educators, when we're working with admin, when we're working with classroom students, when we're in the classroom, of how to help step students in or step users into data that we find to be super effective. And I wanted to share it out here in case this is helpful for any of you as you are thinking about life in this time warp between Thanksgiving and winter break, and maybe wanting to have your students dive into some data, and or as you're thinking forward to the new year and what can we bring our students in the new year? So this is how the structure goes. This is what we find can be really helpful. You spend the first 2 minutes pausing and writing or doodling about a sort of bigger picture question prompt. So not a specific yes, no answer, not a closed-ended question, not a, this is my learning objective, I want you to ponder on this, but that 40,000 foot. So if we are doing an activity about the tides or the moon phases, it's when I say moon, what comes to mind? Okay, so it's big picture. We're pulling back out. The intention is to spend 2 minutes thinking about, engaging with, what are your thoughts? What's the word association? What are some prior knowledge, prior experiences that come up? It should be related to your data. I should say that. So it's at the 40,000 foot level, but it is related to the data. This is to get your juices flowing, to get our brains thinking and moving about the topic that we're going to look into with the data. And then you turn and talk to somebody. Learning is an active engagement and it is amazing how much better it goes when we actually talk things out loud. Now, there is method to this process. One, we process things very differently when we write or doodle it out, when it doesn't just live inside of our head. And we get great ideas and continue to process it differently when we say it out loud and hear what other people are thinking as well. So that's the first step, is do some individual reflection and then share out and hear from others. That can take all of about 5 minutes with instructions. Then we start to think about, okay, well, what is a narrower question? What is a question that we can answer with the data set we have? This is a great place for you to step in as the person who knows the data set. You've got the learning objective for your students. You set that question. and you introduce a data set. And then you give everybody 3 to 5 minutes to explore the data themselves in whatever platform or medium you are using for the data, be it on paper, in Google Sheets, in CodeApp, Data Classroom, any of our graphing programs, your dashboard, if you're doing this at a department meeting, whatever it might be, 3 to 5 minutes to individually do some exploration. And then, you might have guessed where I'm going with this, then you spend the next 5 minutes talking to a neighbor, explaining what you did, showing what you did. It can be as small as, I figured out how to open the data table and how to make a graph. Great. That's awesome. It can be, I want to look at this variable. I was looking at this column of the data. It can be, I made this graph. It can be, I was trying to make this graph, but it didn't quite work. And instead I got this other graph. Whatever it is, getting peer-to-peer discussion of what they're doing is a phenomenal way to drop the floor of entry into data, peer-to-peer instruction on how to work with the data so that you as the facilitator are not always the answer key of how to do things. And it dramatically can increase confidence of oh, I can do this. I can work with data. I can explore. After there's been that peer-to-peer opportunity, then you can revise the question. You can dig back into it with the initial question if that's the really important one. But what I want to highlight in this process is it's not, here's a data set. What do you see? What do you notice? Go find something, make a graph. It is a scaffolded stair step in where we individually get to do it. And then we come back and have peer-to-peer conversations. This works with our learners. This works with our colleagues. This works no matter what age we have. If we have some data phobia in the group, this is a great way to lower the floor and engage hook people in and empower them to realize, oh, wait, I can do this. I can work with data. So those are just some of the initial steps that we do as we are trying to kind of help get over data phobia and invite people into the data sets that we have. What's working for you? How are you getting your learners or your colleagues working with and more comfortable and confident of diving into the data and exploring what it has to offer? Would love to hear, share in the comments, reach out to us, all of those things. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your week and that you have fun playing with data and that things are easy as you're going